friends, Arun Malhotra this side, and I'll be taking you through the month gone by, the figures for February, the performance of February, the trends behind the numbers, and the shape of things to come. The moment we are approaching the end of the financial year, there are three big highlights, and this is a matter of great pride and comfort for the auto industry. In this financial year, we're heading for three all-time records. Highest sale of passenger vehicles, it is expected to be somewhere in the region of 3.9 million, which will be an all-time record. Also coming to tractors, which is a barometer of the auto industry. For the first time, we are crossing the magic figure of 9 lakhs. The expectation from the industry, it will be about 9.5 lakhs, which will be again an all-time record. And for three-wheelers, we are going to cross the figure of 4 lakhs, approximately 4,30,000, which will be all-time record. So three clear segments: tractors, three-wheelers, passenger vehicles, all-time record. And in case of commercial vehicles, it might be a touch and go, probably will not touch the all-time highest figures. But one industry which still remains a cause of concern and a cause of disappointment is the two-wheeler industry. This industry had done 21 million figures in the financial year 18 and 19, and with all indications the way they are, and even if we count the electric two-wheelers in this entire figure of the IC engine two-wheelers, it will not be more than 17-18 million. So clearly this segment of the industry, which is a major constituent, still not performing to the potential. We'll discuss on this. But let's look at February closely. As far as passenger vehicles is concerned, a good set of numbers as far as billing to dealers, 3.35 lakhs. If you look at for the last 3-4 months, the industry has been clocking more than 325, 330 across the board, which is an indication that the supply chain issues which hampered this industry a year back are somewhat behind. There will still be certain challenges. But as far as retail is concerned, we are somewhere in the region of 3 lakhs. The Vahan data shows 280, the industry estimate shows 3 lakhs. And what is one clearly seeing is that the waiting period of models is clearly coming down. There are some models of the major brands which are started to be under pressure. So clearly the pent-up demand has been taken care of, and the new demand, the way it is arising, it will not be that easy as we go to the next financial year. But having said that, still the numbers are good. 3,20,000 on a consistent basis is a good number. Now what we have to wait and watch in the four-wheeler industry is, especially from the month of April, when the new norms kick in, the real drive emission norm and the OBD Part 2 norms, which will increase prices. Already prices have started increasing. The positive part is the industry is geared up for these norms, and a lot of transition has already happened. But prices will be under pressure, and that can play a spoil sport in the next financial year. Coming to two-wheelers. Two-wheelers billing not great, in less than 11 lakhs. It's somewhere in the region of 10.7 lakhs. Retail will be slightly higher, but this is a challenge area. And the bugbear, the entry-level two-wheelers, which has been a pressure point, which has been dramatically hit in the last 4-5 years, whether because of regulatory norms, insurance norms, or the commodity prices, that is pulling the market down. And even if we add EV3 two-wheelers, the figure doesn't change dramatically much. There was a lot of momentum on EV two-wheelers happening right from July onwards, and every month to month there used to be increase. But the last 3 months, if you look at it, the figures of the Vahan clearly show that the figure is hovering around the figure of 65, 66,000. It is not able to break apart that. That's the band it is playing in. Now, what is the reason? So much momentum, if you go by share of voice in the market, one would assume the two-wheelers in electric vehicles are taking over, but the figures don't point towards that. Clearly, there is a new set of customers have to be inducted into the electric three-wheeler. And the second part is 2-3 major manufacturers which are not under the FAME policy, their production, their billing, their retail is also adversely impacted. So it's impacting the industry. But having said that, clearly electric two-wheelers should emerge. But 5 to 6% of the industry on a consistent basis is not a great number. The general assumption was as we go to the financial year end, we will be hovering a figure of 8 to 9% industry. That is still to happen. But let's hope it happens. Commercial vehicle industry, great comeback Commercial vehicle was the industry which was the most adversely impacted by the Euro norms and also because of the COVID. But it has come back in a big way, and the charge is being led by the medium and heavy commercial vehicles, which is clearly leading the pack. They've shown phenomenal growth in February, over 20%. And if I take the entire commercial vehicle industry, whether it's LCV, MHCV, or the heavy commercial vehicles, the figures will be nearly touching to the all-time high. So momentum is positive, and there are two big reasons for it. One is there was a lot of replacement demand which was there, but it was not taking place in terms of sales. That has started happening now. So a lot of vehicles were there for 8 to 10 years which have not been replaced. So people are changing their model mix, and even their fleet is getting renewed and re-energized. And second is the level of economic activity which is happening in the ground in terms of infrastructure, in terms of roads, in terms of even movement, in terms of road construction. That's positively moving. So good news. And last but not the least, the new norms which will kick in also in the heavy commercial vehicles from April 1st will increase prices substantially. And if you talk to a lot of fleet operators, they're saying before it sets in, the prices increase in April, they want to increase or they want to get their fleet enhanced before that. So that's the way the various industries are performing. Tractor industry has been a good indicator of the rural demand. It's holding strong. A lot of people say the tractor industry and the two-wheeler industry are linked closely, but we have to understand that segments are very different. The price points are very different. The customer is very different. And this entry level, the challenge which has been on entry level two-wheelers on price increase, that is not the same challenge as far as the tractor industry is concerned. But overall, a positive set of numbers. And if you look at across the board with neighboring countries, with countries in Africa or America, South America, clearly India is the bright spot and the auto industry is behaving well. The only black spot, I would say, and which is not because of the manufacturers in India, is the major dip in two-wheeler exports, which has started happening from February. From the last 2-3 months, it's continuing in February, and there's a 40% dip. And clearly there were certain big markets in Africa, big markets in Asia, which our economy is in a bad shape. So that's impacting. So that will impact 2-3 major manufacturers whose dependence or whose contribution on exports was fairly high. So we have to wait and watch. It's not impacting the passenger vehicle industry in exports, but clearly the two-wheeler, which was a shining star as far as exports, is impacted. But that's the way things are. We'll now get to two areas which I want to identify, which I want to focus on. There is an interesting phrase which is used in the auto industry. It's across by customers, by media, by dealers, by manufacturers. Waiting period or the delivery period of vehicles. And this became more prevalent in the last 3 years when COVID impacted the production. So waiting periods dramatically shot up. But what one observes even today, and it's happened as last month, across the media, you have reports of waiting period of vehicles being mentioned from 4 weeks to something to the period of 80 weeks. Now I just want to go ahead and dissect this entire waiting period. What does it mean? Does it mean that if a vehicle says that it has got a 16-month waiting period, should I assume that there are customers lined up who can cover up 16-month production and they have paid the full amount and they cannot back out? Absolutely no. Today, the booking amount which is paid for booking by the customers is 3 to 5% of the vehicle price. And if any point of time they want to withdraw that amount also, that is possible without any penalty being imposed. So when there is a mismatch between demand and supply, there is a lot of excitement, exuberance in the industry, and customers tend to even sometimes book the vehicle in 2-3 locations. So there are multiple bookings. Also in the excitement, dealers sometimes also take a benefit of this to create a pull and quote longer waiting periods. So it sets up a virtuous or a vicious cycle, and customers are kept waiting. And some of the genuine customers who probably want to pay the full amount and are ready to buy the vehicle in 2 months, they are told that they have to wait for 6-8 months. So obviously the figures are highly inflated, and sometimes it can cause a lot of problems. Those who remember auto history, the long waiting periods for Bajaj scooters and Maruti cars in the 80s and 90s, they disappeared overnight. So once you pick up production, And once those customers are not the real customers, and if they're not paid the full amount, this whole thing can come crashing down. So delivery period and waiting period to be quoted has to be more accurate. Another thing which happens is in the delivery waiting period, there are some variants which have longer waiting period. But the way it comes out in the general market is that it's the whole model. So you might have one variant which just contributes 20% of the volume of the product. So probably we have to take it with clearly focused on, let's say, terms and conditions apply. So next time when you look at waiting periods or delivery periods of vehicles, don't take it only with a pinch of salt, take it with a dollop of salt. One of the things which I would like to discuss on is regarding the regulations. We've discussed enough on it area, but a lot of legislations, or I would say directives, which come in various states, which impact the industry and ultimately impacts the customer. Let's look up 2-3 developments that happened in the last 1 month. In the Union Territory of Chandigarh, a directive has been passed that electric two-wheelers will only be allowed to be registered because they had a quota system. And so all IC engine vehicles, which contributes 95% of the passenger market, cannot be registered in Chandigarh. That means customers who book these vehicles cannot buy them. Dealers who have these vehicles cannot sell them. Now, the intention may be very noble, but certain this directive coming out of the blue impacts the industry very badly, and especially the dealers and the customers. Sometimes it is not also very practical. Let's take the case of Chandigarh. On the border of Chandigarh, there are 2 towns. One is Panchkula, which is in the state of Haryana, and Mohali, which is in the state of Punjab. So what happens? People do rush to the other places and show themselves customers from there or buy vehicles from those dealerships in those areas. So effectively, it doesn't serve the purpose. So is there a need of having a more nationalistic policy rather than having a policy which is something linked to a state? The second thing in Delhi, which you have just observed, there is a lot of noise being generated that for commercial purposes, the only vehicles for two-wheelers will be allowed is the EV two-wheeler. 90% of the vehicles which are there and people who are earning their income is from the IC engine which they bought at a much lower price. Now, are we going to put them out of job, or are we going to tell them that they should dispose of the vehicles and buy vehicles of higher price? That can also impact the industry. We had this case in November in Delhi when the pollution level shot up. In a knee-jerk reaction, it was decided that Euro 3 and Euro 4 vehicles will not be allowed to ply. And this directive was given, it was made effective the very next day. And people who had Euro 3, Euro 4 vehicles, which contribute more than 80-85% of the vehicles on road in Delhi, got a rude shock. They were shown that they can be fined 10,000 to 20,000 rupees. Fortunately, this directive was removed after a few days. Also in the south, electric auto rickshaws in some states are not allowed to be plied. So clearly, various legislations, various directives working in states, and they cause a lot of disturbance in the overall market. Since we have a national policy on automobile and our government is so progressive, we have clear policies on emissions, we have clear policy on safety. Shouldn't we have a more national policy? Or should we leave it to the states or certain authorities to create confusion in this market? I won't say confusion is not the wrong word, to create some activity in the market which impacts the market. That's a question which we need to observe, our policy level. So we need to be moving in, as far as auto is concerned, a more national policy rather than a local policy. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I'll back with you in the first week of April, where we look at the entire year and we look at the shape of things to come in the next financial year. Till then, goodbye.